and welcome to the Mac Gamecast, episode 58. I'm your host, Jon Casper, as always, and with me today is co-host Casper. How you doing?
Doing pretty good. Excited about all of the games that are running on Mac these days. We're seeing a lot of new things recently, and I've got some fun hardware to play it on. So all that's pretty fun.
Absolutely. We're going to talk about that a bit today. Quick side note, I'm getting over a cold, so if I sound different, that's why. And we have some great new releases, as we have Assassin's Creed Shadows, we have Control Ultimate Edition, we have Resident Evil 3. In terms of AAA stuff, there may be even some more I'm not aware of or that have snuck in lately. But some fun stuff. I know you've been playing and testing things, so let's jump right into that.
Yeah, so I very briefly mentioned this last time when we did the interview with Nat. But last time I had ordered an M4 Mac Studio, and I've been playing with that lately. And I've been playing a bunch of these, both games that are coming natively to Mac, or have come natively to Mac rather, but also some other stuff here and there using the various methods we've talked about before, like crossover and stuff.
Right.
Of the new big stuff, I've been playing Assassin's Creed Shadows both yesterday and today, and been benchmarking it pretty much since day one on the Mac with various configurations and setups and stuff. And I've tried the demo for Resident Evil 3 and a bunch of various stuff here and there. So there's a bunch of fun stuff. We're seeing some of this stuff on the Mac for the first time, where it might have had Windows releases before, but with something like Assassin's Creed Shadows side-by-side simultaneous launch. Now, I think we can talk more about like the actual gaming experience of Shadows as well, but I will say that from a performance perspective, I have been a little bit disappointed by Shadows. In both like a general PC port perspective, it's not necessarily running that well. People on the PC side have complained about that as well, but then on the Mac side, it's a slight bit worse than it is on the PC side as well, comparative to the hardware it's running on.
Yeah.
And while I am enjoying the game so far and having a good time with it, I don't feel really comfortable recommending it to people with anything less than like an M3 Max, preferably the M4 Max, but the difference there isn't that huge, I guess. But
right.
Anything less, I can hardly imagine it being that good an experience, honestly. I can run at decently fine settings, but I'm still running with Metal FX on performance tier, so effectively I'm rendering at 1080p and upscaling that to 4K, right? And I don't think that for a top spec M4 Max that I should have to render at 1080p. Like I'm not expecting to render at 4K natively without upscaling that with high settings, right? That would be ludicrous to expect. Not even a 5090 can do that. But I feel like I should at least be like 1440p or thereabouts, not
you would
1080p.
hope. You would hope. I mean, on a new game, new high-end Mac.
Mm-hmm. And it's not even like the M3 Ultra is going to do that much better because of the way the hardware is scaled differently and the different aspects of that, right? That said, it has improved a lot from launch, not necessarily in like the ultimate performance. The performance has gone up a little bit since launch, but hardware utilization is looking a lot better. On the day one release of it, I was seeing CPU utilization constantly of between 1,400 and 1,600%. And that math makes sense because it counts 100% as one full CPU core. So it was basically hammering all of the CPU cores on my M4 Max. These days I'm seeing 400 to 500%. So it's only using 4 to 5 of the performance cores instead. And the game runs at a little better performance, but almost the same than it did back then. Right. For a Mac Studio setup, it doesn't really matter that much because the cooling can keep up with it. But I could imagine that if you're playing on a 14-inch MacBook Pro, that actually makes a decent performance difference because of the cooling aspect of that. But also, of course, there's other aspects to that, like battery life and such that could be better while playing the game. So
Yeah,
it's nice to see that they are improving it, right?
I had a performance question.
Mm-hmm.
I have seen the complaints there, like you were saying. Like, basically any of the poor reviews aren't about the game itself, but the performance.
Yeah.
On the App Store, for example. But does the game stutter, or is it just not like as good FPS as you would like out of the settings? But is it
there are micro stutters here and there, but they are few and far between in my experience. And again, I am playing on super high end Mac. That experience might be different on a low end machine.
Of course, like I haven't tried it. Like technically, the game's valid to run on my M1 Pro, but I haven't tried it yet. So,
but like there's a few micro stutters here and there, but few and far between, and that's not really that big a deal. It's more the average FPS just being low than it is those excursions.
Right. So the real question is, should people? This is a $70 game. It's not cheap.
Mm-hmm.
It is day and day release with PC and console, which is pretty amazing. Performance could be better, but that's unfortunate. At this point, it's more like a surprise when the performance is good for like a AAA native Mac release these days. Anyway, back in the day, that may or may not be true, but that to be fair, a lot of games are released even on PC or console with not great performance these days. With that aside, should gamers looking for they got $70 to burn, should they be looking at this just because, there's a new AC game on Mac and there hasn't been since 2011 or something crazy? Or should they be looking to get it because the game's actually really good? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what's your opinion?
I'm not that far into it. I've played like 3 hours or something, right? With my experience up to this point, I've had a good time, and I get that feeling that you sometimes get with really nice games, where when you leave it behind, you keep thinking, "Oh, I can't wait to get back to that."
Yeah.
So that's a super good sign, and I would recommend it on a pure game basis. But I can't in good conscience recommend it to the majority of Mac players, because I can't imagine the majority of Mac players having a good enough Mac to run this at a satisfying level.
Right. Most people are still rocking M1s or M2s.
Yeah, and like, so the game has enforced ray tracing. There are, you can scale how much ray tracing, and you can set it so it only does diffused ray tracing in what they call the hideout, which is like your base of operations and stuff. So you can sort of tweak that a little, but there is always going to be some ray tracing in the game. And of course, only M3 and M4 have hardware accelerated ray tracing. So if you run the game on an M1 or an M2 series of chip, you're going to get significantly worse performance, especially in that hideout where you can't disable diffuse ray tracing. And that might be fine everywhere else, but then you're going to get this experience where you go out in the world and maybe you're getting 30 FPS at 720p, but then you go to your hideout and you're getting 10. And you need to spend some time in the hideout every now and then. And I want to recommend this game, but I don't really feel like I can. That said, if you are on a really high-end rig, you have an M3 Max, you have an M4 Max, or an Ultra chip or something like that, I think it's recommendable. I think it's a good game so far. As I said, I get that feeling of I can't wait to get back to this whenever I close it down. But for the majority of players, I don't think you're going to have an enjoyable experience with the performance tier as it is right now.
Right.
I would recommend playing it on a PlayStation or something if you have that instead, frankly.
Or it's on GeForce Now.
or that. That might be a better experience for the majority of players, yeah.
Yeah. I've heard generally good things about the game. I'm not a fan of dual protagonist stuff. It's nothing to do with Yasuke being black or anything. Like, there was some mild controversy about that. I don't care. I prefer just to focus typically on a single character. What's their journey? What's their growth? I liked it when in AC London or whatever it was called, because the characters were twins.
Yeah, Syndicate.
Jacob and Ellie or Elise or something. I also happen to have a twin sister, so I related to that a lot as well. Not that, be cool if she was a ninja assassin. Of course she isn't, but I like that
don't
dynamic.
Don't reveal your family secrets, man.
Yeah. The Templars will come after me. That dynamic, I think, worked much more sensibly in the context of the story. I'm not the biggest fan of how it's shaken out in Shadows. I mean, But you know, it's a design choice. It's fine. The reviews have been good for the game. I haven't played the game, honestly, but I've watched it played a lot on Twitch, on YouTube. I've played so many Assassin's Creed games, like, it's not a mystery to me, like, how this game plays or progresses.
So actually, that's a very interesting point. Because I personally haven't played an Assassin's Creed game since Black Flag. And before, like, I didn't even really complete Black Flag. I just played it a bit here and there on my brother's machine. The last Assassin's Creed game I actually played a decent amount, and I did complete, was Revelations. So I played 1, 2, Brotherhood, Revelations, a little bit of Black Flag, and then I haven't touched the series for so long.
Interesting. So what's it like coming back to it after like a really long time?
Right, so there's a lot of it where I'm sitting with Shadows, and I'm like, is this what Assassin's Creed is now, or is this what Shadows is doing differently? And I have no idea. And in some ways, I'm sitting there feeling like, why is this even called Assassin's Creed anymore? It feels like a completely different game to me, which I think is good, because I wouldn't want to just play Revelations 2 at this point, right? You know, a game that feels exactly the same. But there's also aspects to it where I'm sitting there and I'm feeling like, I don't really feel like this fits into what my expectations were. I'm enjoying the game, as I said. I'm having a good time. But one thing that's been really bugging me a little bit so far is the locomotion of the game, the movement around the world. Because I always thought that was such a big deal in Assassin's Creed games, that it felt good to move through the world. Yeah. And I feel like it feels less good now than it did in Black Flag.
Even as Naue?
Yes, as both of them. One problem I really have is that I can't just jump anywhere. I can jump off of things, but I can't just run in the environment and jump.
Yeah, you could pretty much almost go anywhere in the older games. Even in Valhalla, to my memory, there wasn't much like cut off to you. The Viking game from, I think, 2019 or 2020.
But like if I run up towards a hill or whatever and I hold the X button, I play with a DualSense controller even on Mac. They will do like a little skimmy and go upwards. So you do have like a lot of vertical movement, but I can't just do a run and a jump. Like I really feel like I'm also in combat. I would like to do like a running jump attack. Yeah, not an option. I feel like
weird.
It's actually especially in combat that I feel like my movement is too limited. Because especially as now, I want to be like that nimble jab, move away, move away, right? Yeah. And I feel like the only button I really have that is designed to do combat movement is the dodge button. And aside from that, it's just figuring out whether you're doing light, heavy, or block or whatever. But I can't do like enough movement in strategic, like navigating around enemies and jumping towards them and stuff, I feel. But that's probably just a me thing, or maybe I unlock better skills further in the game, or
maybe
whatever.
I don't recall. I mean, Valhalla was pretty sandboxy in combat, honestly. Like there's so many different weapons and styles and angles, and you could just jump and attack people. It was pretty dang fun. But you're not wrong that Assassin's Creed today is not Assassin's Creed of yore. I do wish they had perhaps put... I understand they want to keep the brand recognition, the IP, but even some brands spin off like sub-brands or labels. I don't know what it would be called. It sounds silly to say like, well, this is Assassin's Creed RPG sub-label or something, but that's really what it is, because it's extremely different. Everything's level locked, level coded. There's loot rarity. I think there's even randomized loot. There's all this stuff in the game. You're like, WTF? Like, what happened to Assassin's Creed? Now, I do think they're actually, like, especially starting with Origins, the Egyptian one is when the RPG system started. I didn't really like that game. They went to the Greek one, Odyssey, which was pretty dang good. I think that Valhalla is pretty perfected, and it was their, still to date, biggest, best-selling Assassin's Creed of all time is Valhalla, because everyone likes Vikings, of course. And I did finish that game. I did finish Black Flag. But yeah, the series has changed, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, but call it the exact same name, and then, yeah, a player like you who maybe hasn't played in, like, a full game in 10 years or something, you're like, hey, wait, what's, like, this is a different game under the same name, and that's very true. So it's a good and a bad thing depending on your preference or your expectation. But yeah, set in Japan, everyone's wanted it for a long time. You get to play a cool ninja girl, you get to play a cool samurai guy. I do think it's a little funny. There's like a canon mode apparently, which turns off all dialogue options and romance. It's just like a story, which is probably how I would play it if I ever did.
Yeah, I also think that's interesting because that's what the Assassin's Creed games used to be. They didn't give you dialogue choices and stuff, right?
Correct.
I definitely kept that off so I could make the choices because now I am taking the perspective now that I'm playing this as an RPG.
Right.
Because that's a lot more what it is with just assassination in there as well, right?
Yeah.
And I do think it's fun to have like dialogue choices and all that. But I think it's interesting that they call it canon mode and not just like, I don't know, turn on off choices or something. Because calling it the canon mode, it always puts it in the back of your mind while you're playing it, quote unquote, normally, that the decisions you're making are not canon.
Well, that's exactly it. Yeah, it's funny that they literally named it canon mode. I have to say, the English voice acting is pretty atrocious for a AAA game. I would personally only play with Japanese and English subtitles.
Yeah, they also have when you set up the game, they ask you if you want to play in immersive mode, where it locks you into Japanese with Portuguese and stuff in there for all of the voice acting.
Right.
So it does seem like they themselves go like it's kind of the recommended way of doing it, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like any AC game these days, it's too big, it's too bloated. There's always a bunch of filler, like nonsense to get through. But the core of the game is fun. There's always a lot to explore. The environments are usually great, and I've heard a lot of praise for like the environments in the game overall. Anyway,
yeah, terrain is absolutely fantastic so far. That's really like from a visual perspective as well, but also just like an explorative perspective. That's a huge takeaway of mine so far. The environments are very well done. They also have good interactability in the environment, like cutting down trees with your katana and stuff. It's very what do I say? Like
interactive, destructible.
Yeah, it whenever you try to do something, the world reacts to it. It's reactive. That's the word I was looking
reactive.
for.
There you go. Right.
Yeah,
and can't you swim now as well? That's like a big deal.
There's swimming. There's diving. If you can get an ability as Naui that you can get pretty early on, where you can take one of the reeds from the water and use that as a straw to breathe while you're underwater.
Nice.
So you can hide more in shallow waters and stuff. They have a lot of. In that sense, they have a lot of fun locomotive options for moving around the environment. I'm just really missing that jump at will button, frankly.
Right. It does. I mean, to me, it seems the game was mostly designed for Naue because most of the parkour and almost all the stealth stuff and the extra cool moves, like shimmying around and reeds on your stomach, or in the water, or I think you get a little grappling hook or whatever. Like,
yeah, she has a grappling hook.
There's
it's
all
pretty
this
fun
stuff that is designed for more stealth emphasis, which the game has gotten away from and gotten a lot of criticism for. Especially Valhalla. Valhalla stealth was like, LOL, what are you talking about? I'm going to kick down the door with my 2 axes and chop everyone up,
yeah, but that's what Yasuke, is that his name?
Yasuke, yeah.
Yeah, that's what he represents, right? He represents the Valhalla type of combat and gameplay, I feel, where now he represents, well, we're still Assassin's Creed. We're still an assassination game. And it's trying to kind of blending those directions the game has taken, right?
Yeah. I still wish they would go all in on one or the other, because I do think you inevitably, like, you unavoidably sacrifice something for both, trying to please everyone.
There's definitely a dilution.
That dilution, that's the exact word I'm thinking. But the game's big budget. It's expensive, but you could probably sink 100 hours into it or something if you wanted to. 50, 100 hours, like you can play the game a bunch. They're inevitably going to have DLC, blah, blah, blah. The game has microtransactions, which I hate, but they've been doing that since Odyssey, or maybe even earlier, Origins, so it's like, whatever. Yeah. You can avoid it, but... if you're a fan of old Assassin's Creed, like AC2 or Brotherhood, which were on the Mac way back in the day, I don't know if you'll enjoy it because of your expectations, but if you generally like the series, you played other games, you like the setting, Japan's cool, obviously, you'll probably have a good time. But as Casper said, make sure you have some good hardware, or if you can't afford an M4 Max or whatever, which not everyone can for obvious reasons. And yeah, you might just look for something like GeForce Now, or on a console, if you already own one. But it is nice to see a big AAA game, hopefully, release day one on Mac. That's pretty rare. And Ubisoft's a heavy hitter. AC is a big IP, and it's just good. There's more stuff on Mac, but we can't spend the whole episode.
I'll also say this, that while the performance is definitely lackluster and you would want more from any given hardware tier on the Mac, I'll give Ubisoft a lot of credit for what they've done with the Mac port. It's very responsive to the Apple expectation. You boot up the game, it does a little initialization step where it compiles the metal shaders throughout the game, specifically for your Mac. That's a thing. Most modern games will have a compiler step for the shaders specifically for your hardware, but a lot of other modern AAA games will compile the shaders while you're playing the game and give you these micro stutters throughout. This game does compile all the shaders at initialization time the first time you boot it, so you don't have those little stutters throughout. They use Metal FX upscaling, and they utilize the Apple Neural Engine on the chip for the Metal FX upscaling. And the Metal FX upscaling looks pretty well implemented. I wouldn't it's nothing like the DLSS 4 or FSR 4 or anything like that. In my opinion, it's still a bit behind there, but their implementation of Metal FX is good. It's reactive to expected macOS keyboard shortcuts, like you can quit it with Command Q.
Nice.
And it uses Apple's game controller framework to work seamlessly with a variety of game controllers. So any game controller supported by macOS will run with the game, and it will have the correct glyphs in the game. So if you're using a PlayStation controller, it'll have the X, circle, triangle symbols like the PlayStation, and if you're using Xbox, it'll have the right Xbox logos and so on, right? And that's all using the native Apple frameworks for all of this stuff. While I was investigating the performance of the game, I also dug through their files and found out that they have this Mac hardware requirements JSON file where they just list all of the different Apple computers and chips that are currently in existence with Apple Silicon, and have preset definitions for recommended graphic settings and stuff depending on the computer model and the chip. So it's not even just like all M2 Pro or whatever. It's M2 Pro in Mac Mini versus M2 Pro in MacBook Air, where they define the presets. So they have actually put in a lot of effort, even though there's still something in the way that they've programmed these things that don't necessarily perform as well as it would on equivalent-ish PC hardware. And even there, people complain about performance too. So
For sure, yeah. No, big props. It's what we need more of. It may not be perfect, but it's good enough, or if you have the right hardware. So yeah, hoping to see more of it. Speaking of, we have Control Ultimate Edition and Resident Evil 3 recently released as well. I know you've been playing around with both. I've fully finished Control a while ago, not on Mac. How far are you into Control? How's that been going?
Right. So I've done something in maintenance. Honestly, it's hard to describe and remember exactly where I am.
It's not a straightforward game per se.
Yeah. I've seen the triangle.
Okay,
it sounds ludicrous when I talk about it like this, right?
It does, but if you played the game, I know what you mean, yeah.
Yeah, I want to say this in ways as well where I don't spoil it for people who haven't played it, but I try and inform. Yeah, so
well, you played it 3 hours, 5 hours, 1 hour, you know what I mean?
10? I don't know.
Okay, so you're more than halfway through the game, I believe, then.
Probably.
It takes around 20 hours to finish, so...
Fair enough.
Yeah, but it's only $40. It's on the App Store. Speaking of, AC Shadows is App Store only for the moment. There's no Steam or Epic Store version that I saw. Same for Control. The Ultimate Edition gives you the base game, 2 DLCs, and maybe even some other DLC. So pretty good deal for $40. I think the base game alone's worth $40, what to speak of all the extras. It's a really fun game. I mean, whenever I play a Remedy game, I honestly wish I was playing a new Max Payne instead, but because there's a lot of that DNA there, weird third-person shooter with weird story, weird dream visiony things going on with
and
your
you can
character.
Usually find Sam Lake's face or a voice in there somewhere.
Yeah, but I think it's a really fun game. Highly recommended. I've heard Mac performance is good. I think the game's very fun. Like you're a new uh you're an employee at some like variant of the FBI, but for the paranormal or something.
Yeah,
And
the
as soon as
Federal
you
Bureau of Control.
there you go. And as soon as you go in, like everything's weird and goes wrong, and you have to investigate why. And it's sort of it's somewhat action horror, but not like pure horror, just like some horror.
Yeah, it started out like when I first booted the game, I was like, "Oh, I'm not that good at horror games. I get spooked too easily," and I play a bit, and I'm like, "Ooh, spooky, spooky," and sitting there feeling like, "How do I really want to continue this?" Because I'm not really that big a fan of horror. But then once you get into it a bit, it turns a lot more actiony, and the horror.
Yeah, the first hour is honestly like pretty damn freaky, and then after that, it kind of it like evens out, and it's more action than horror.
Yeah,
but yeah, it plays some neat ideas. You get only one gun, but it changes forms, or hyperphysical shotcaster, I think it's called. And of course, you can upgrade it with different ways over the games. You can kind of pick and choose your favorite like weapon types, like a pistol or more of a sniper, or there's even like a rocket launcher-y thing later, and this and that. I think there's an SMG type version. I kind of forget. It's been a while.
Yeah, that's the latest one I unlocked. It's called the Spin in there.
Yeah. So there's a lot of fun stuff there. You also get like cool powers, like telekinetic type powers. That's not really a spoiler. It's in all the trailers. My only con with the game is it's sort of endlessly kind of drab. You're always indoors. It's always kind of dark and gray and officey, kind of like Fear or something. There's rarely any like real burst of color. I mean, I guess other than your character's jacket is probably the most colorful thing in the game.
Yeah, I mean, they do have those sequences where everything goes a little bit wild, and they offer some variation. Like the building itself can shift around, or you can be in an endless maze, or
the environments are really good. There's some like weird puzzly areas you have to get through. It's not just like a pure shooter. You got to use your head. The story's really good. The voice acting's really good. The environments are fun to explore. There's always like hidden notes and secrets and secret upgrades even. Stuff like that. The game's really good. It also uses ray tracing, but it's not forced that I know of. But if you can turn it on, it does look really good because there's a lot of glass in the game. Yeah, I just highly recommend it. I think it's a really strong action, adventure, horror, not adventure, but action sort of horror shooter. Great story, great visuals, fun. The combat means fun throughout the game, honestly. It doesn't get old. The enemies get a little stale, I'm not going to lie, but it's not too bad.
That's where I actually disagree. I think it is too bad. I'm enjoying the game, and I am going to finish it mainly because of the story, but I have gotten already extremely tired of the combat. Because I just feel like the enemies just keep coming, and I'm just like, oh, do I have to fight another bunch of you guys? And they're all the same, and the fighting is always just, I go to that guy, I punch him, I shoot him, I punch him, I shoot him, I shoot him, I shoot him, I shoot him. And I mean, I got really good at headshots, so that makes the combat go quicker, or certain combinations of powers and guns and melee. But it's true. Yeah. Sometimes, the story and environments are compelling enough. Sometimes you're like, fight's a distraction right now. I want to do more like story environment stuff. It's true that does crop up. I would even agree, even like a combat junkie like me. But I don't think it's too bad. I mean, you could always turn down the difficulty if you wanted. I did. I turned down the difficulty a lot. I added like, you can add like modifiers, so you have like more health or more damage and stuff. And I added a lot of those modifiers just to make combat move faster. Right. Not because it was too difficult for me, just because I wanted to get through it faster.
Yeah. No, I've felt like that with other games before. I don't remember their names, but still, I think that just came out 2 or 3 weeks ago. Again, it has good reviews in the App Store. No performance complaints that I've seen. It's a really unique game. I have not played the DLCs. I think sort of mixed things about one of them, but really, I think the second DLC you actually play as Alan Wake or something, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, fun.
Or it's a link to Alan Wake, because it turns out it's like a big shared weird world.
Yeah, it's all one interconnected Remedyverse, as they call it.
Yeah, the Remedyverse. They're already making a Control 2 because it was so popular, so hopefully that'll be on Mac as well. Maybe we could get a day one release or a near release rather than years later. So hopefully, the game gets a good reception on Mac. Seems to be so far. But I generally recommend it. Have a peek. It's not that expensive. So, it's not $70, it's $40. That helps. It's not as demanding.
I've seen from Mr. Mac on YouTube that the different settings you can pick for the graphics are very scalable. So while the game can be very taxing, and you can definitely set it up in such a way that even an M3 Ultra isn't getting 60 FPS if you just turn everything to max at 4K, you can definitely set the settings in such a way that you can run this game on a MacBook Air, no problem.
Right, yeah, super scalable. I think it's Unreal Engine, if I'm not mistaken, or is it its own engine? I kind of forget what they do.
I actually don't know.
Not sure, but yeah, I just remember it being very scalable. But yeah, the environments and the story are definitely the highlight throughout the game overall, and there's also even like optional extra areas of weirdness and challenge and stuff. There's actually one like uber boss guy in a side room towards the end game I never beat. Like he was the one thing I'm like, I tried to beat him like 5 times. I'm like, he just keeps kicking my ass. Forget it. Never defeated him. But yeah, great game. Highly recommended. How about Resident Evil 3? I believe you said you checked out the demo.
Yeah, so I really enjoy this, that they do this, but a lot of the games coming to Mac recently, Sniper Elite did this as well, speaking, where it's free to just download on the Mac App Store. The button just says free, and then it says with in-app purchases, so you can get fooled by that and go like, oh, the game is free, but no, that's just how they do demos, but I do like that they have demos.
It's really good.
So yeah, you can play the opening of Resident Evil 3 for free. It's also quite scalable, just like Control, so you can set it up in a way where it plays perfectly fine on a MacBook Air, or push things a bit harder. I don't think you can push it hard enough to really be problematic on any machine, or on the super high-end machines, though. Like there's an upper limit to the scalability, but it scales pretty far down on the lower-end machines. So I had it pretty cranked and got consistently 80 to 140, 50 FPS. Quite a big range, but it never did like huge stutters or anything. It was just different areas, and depending on what you were looking at, it hovered in that range.
Yeah, it's on sale right now. Just shout out to April 16th. It's only $10, but that's apparently a 67% discount. So I guess it'll jump up to what, $30, $40 or something? I'm not sure. I'm bad at math, but the point right now is it's on sale for $10 for just a couple more days. So yeah, check that out.
And from like a pure, well, I mean, for one thing, I often talk about the performance just because I want people to be aware of what they can expect from their hardware. But in this case, it doesn't actually matter because the demo is free, so you can try it out on your hardware and go like, does it run well enough that I want to pay for it, right? But from a gameplay perspective, I found the demo fun. I thought it was engaging enough that I played through all of it, where I actually booted it up just thinking, I'll just see how it runs and then I'll quit it and it'll be that. It was one of the first things I tried out on my Mac Studio when I got it, just like, I want to see how that runs. But it was fun enough that I played through the whole demo and was like, I had a good time. Not good enough that I wanted to buy it. As I said, I'm not really that into horror. And while this is definitely more on the action-y scale of horror, it's still, a horror-inspired game in a lot of ways.
I mean, there's gruesome monsters everywhere. There is jump scares. There's the nemesis who stalks you like endlessly, and I'm definitely going to play through the demo. I did download it just before the show. For $10, I might even buy it, depending on how much I like the game. I've seen it. I played it like forever ago at a buddy's house on a PS2 or 3 or whatever the heck. This is, I think, the remastered version.
Yes, a full remake even.
Remake, yeah. So they've been getting, they've been nailing it apparently with the remakes overall, Capcom. And again, most of them have been coming to Mac, including the new Resident Evil. So it's kind of cool we have like a Mac horror franchise that's reliable now. Whether they're not my main genre at all. I dabble, but I'm happy it's there because I know horror is fairly popular.
Yeah, and they do a really cool intro because it's a demo and anyone can just go play it. I won't spoil it too much, but they start you off in first person. The game goes third person action-y later, but it starts you off in a first person sequence. It's pretty cool. I can recommend just playing that intro. That is probably the most horror the game gets, that intro, but
oh, interesting, yeah.
It's very cinematic and cool.
Because I know the later games are first person, like RE6 or 7 or 8 or whatever.
Yeah.
Cool game. So those are the AAA highlights. There's I can't think of any indie highlights right now, but there's always more on Steam. there's all kinds of games on Steam always releasing indie stuff. But
Mhm.
yeah, good time to be a Mac gamer. Hardware's getting better. Games are getting more available. Everything we wanted, years and years ago we talked about. And there's still more to come throughout the rest of the year. I forget exactly what they are at this
I mean,
point, but I know there's
Cyberpunk still hasn't
Oh yeah,
released.
Cyberpunk still isn't hit. There you go. I knew there was a big one.
I'm kind of
Um,
disappointed about that. I really thought Cyberpunk was going to land at the same time that the M3 Ultra and M4 Mac Studios were going to land, but nope,
yeah,
still not.
yeah. I'm curious if it's just the small internal team working on that, or no, that's Larian's team, Alvarez. I'm not sure who's doing the Mac ports specifically, whether it's internal or hired out or some Apple assisted thing. It's all a bit like under wraps. So,
Mhm.
but we do know the game already runs pretty well under crossover, honestly.
Mhm.
So in theory, a native port is just even better. And like we just talked about with Control, the graphic settings for Cyberpunk very scalable. A
Mhm.
lot of levers to pull to get performance. So that's
Yeah, and I
also
mean,
promising.
even through crossover, like you just said, you can get it running decently well on an M1 MacBook Air. So I can only imagine that's going to work very well with the native port.
Yeah. And similarly, I believe, yeah, it's going to be like an Ultimate Edition with the DLC. There's only one DLC for the game, but yeah, should be a. I don't know what. They seem to do a lot of these launch discounts for the Mac games, not always, but often. So, I mean, I think the game's easily worth $60, like as is. What to speak with the DLC, but yeah, I don't know if they're going to discount it or not. But obviously, I'm a Cyberpunk fanatic, so easy
Mhm.
recommend when that shows up. Is hopefully they get the performance like tuned nicely though.
Yeah, I mean, my biggest hope with it is honestly just that it's going to be a success enough for CD Projekt Red that they're going to keep the Mac more of a first class citizen for their future products.
Right.
It's been very on off and long delays
And we
with their
still
prior
never
stuff.
got The Witcher 3 hilariously. But
Yeah.
it runs great in crossover, but that's besides the point. Yeah, I mean The Witcher 4 is supposed to be out in I think 2027 and Project Orion, which is the next Cyberpunk game, is targeted for like 2029 or 2030, so it's a ways off before their like next stuff comes. Um but that's like the latest I heard maybe a couple weeks ago I read from a little interview they gave. So,
Mhm.
but yeah, I agree with that. Hopefully it works out well.
But it was also
Um,
supposed to be first or early 2020, whatever the year is, 2025, that Cyberpunk came to Mac. But like, I feel like we're heading towards middle of rather than early 2025.
yeah, I mean, we're almost half month, well, just about 4.5 months in. Yeah, that's not really early 2025. Yeah, we're definitely
Mhm.
approaching second quarter two.
Well, while they never settled on like a concrete date that they announced, I feel like it's gotten
They did.
delayed.
Yeah, it's definitely, I feel like it's gotten delayed as well. And hopefully it's because they're just polishing it more. Like we're, we're ironing out bugs or polishing performance or whatever. So
Hmm.
maybe they're testing it on M5s. We just don't even know.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we can switch to some more tech talk or upcoming news, rumors, releases, anything like that.
Hmm. I mean, one big thing that's happened since our last episode is that WWDC has been announced. It's going to start on June 9th and go the week as it usually does.
Right.
So that's probably going to be the next big Apple event. I don't think we're going to get anything before then, frankly.
I doubt it, yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, we got the M3 Ultra and M4 Max studios before that, but it's a bit old news at this point. We just never really brought it up in a podcast because we had the interview with Nat Brown that took priority.
Yeah. Right.
With that, the M3 Ultra was such an oddball. I complained a lot about that machine in our internal Discord in the podcast. Not because I don't think it's a good product. It probably is a good product, but because I feel like it sticks out like a sore thumb in the product line. You have all of these M4 machines, and then as an upgrade from the M4 Max, you have the M3 Ultra. And
Yeah,
I'm
it's very
happy
odd.
that Apple chose that naming convention, that they didn't just go, well, we'll call it an M4 Ultra, even though it is using M3 IP. So I do think Apple did the right thing in that respect, but it just feels so weird. But But that does put a big question mark on what we should expect from the Mac Pro, which I'm assuming we'll see an announcement of at WWDC.
Yeah.
Because it's still running on M2 Ultra, which is in the current product lineup absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
You can get an M3 Ultra for cheaper than the Mac Pro with the M2 Ultra, and the M3 is way better and has hardware ray tracing and all that jazz. So it's the product lineup for the Mac Pro right now is ludicrous. But there's a lot of different expectations from different people on the Mac Pro. Whether we're going to see it just ship with the M3 Ultra that we've already seen in the Mac Studio, and that's just going to be it, which would be a little disappointing, especially because of the delayed launch of the Mac Pro relative to the Studio. Because if they're literally just doing a spec bump to the M3 Ultra and nothing else, then why not just do that along with the Mac Studio announcement?
Right.
But there's also some people thinking that it's going to be the first M5 chip, bringing an M5 Ultra or M5 Extreme or something. And then it's the Mac Studio that's going to be behind at a cheaper price point, which does make some sense. And then some people are just going to saying that they're not going to do an M4 Ultra, but they're going to do an M4 Extreme, which is dedicated silicon that is made for the Mac Pro on the M4 generation. And some people think they're going to skip the Mac Pro entirely and leave it on M2 Ultra for another year or something, which also feels insane, but I can kind of see the logic in it, given that they haven't upgraded it to anything else so far. Yeah, it's a whole thing with the Mac Pro, but I don't really know what to expect, frankly. I'm leaning towards the M4 Extreme. Sorry, what were you saying?
I was just saying multiple possibilities there for sure.
Yeah. I do hope for the next version of macOS to bring some improvements to performance across the board. Like from a GPU driver perspective, because again, if you compare the Assassin's Creed Shadows performance on Mac to the PC performance, they actually managed to do a decent bit of work in driver updates, AMD and NVIDIA, adding, it's still not night and day or anything, but they added like 5 to 8% performance just through GPU drivers. Right. And I'm not sure Apple's going to do anything like that at all, but we'll see if the GPU drivers for macOS 16 or whatever it's going to be will improve anything on that front.
We can hope, certainly.
We can hope. Aside from that, there's nothing that big expected at WWDC, mainly software this year and then that Mac Pro. But later on in the year, of course, we're expecting to see the lineup of M5s rolling out. MacBook Pros coming with M5 Pro and M5 Max, of course. Nice. But there's not that much detail on what that's going to look like, other than we're expecting a new GPU overhaul and some slight CPU improvements.
Yeah, I could see myself upgrading to an M5 Pro, seeing as I'm still in an M1 Pro. But I still hear a rumor they might do OLED displays, but I don't know if that would be this year. I heard 2026 for that. So
2026 is generally what I'm hearing as well, yeah.
Probably wait.
I think there's a lot of potential on Apple's display side of things, especially for desktops, because I already think that their laptop lineup of displays is fantastic.
Yeah.
Like a tandem OLED thing would be a nice upgrade on the MacBook Pros, but I frankly think that the mini LED LCD displays that they already have are incredible.
They are.
But while I went from an iMac to this Mac Studio setup, I just got some Asus 4K LCD panel, and it's fine. It's a lot cheaper than anything like a studio display or something, which is why I got it, because I'm like waiting for the second generation studio display. I don't really want to buy into hardware that's as old as the original studio display is now, but at that price point. But I couldn't get like a nice 5K monitor either, which is what I really wanted. I wanted to get what was it called? The Asus ProArt something. Display names. They're all just a number of letters and the numbers just scrambled together, right?
Yeah, you said they were out of stock or something, the one you wanted.
Yeah, I couldn't get it anywhere, and they kept saying that the manufacturer doesn't know when they're going to get more of them or anything, so I I ordered this as a temporary solution. It is 4K because I really don't want to go below that. Um, but it, especially viewing angles and contrast and maximum brightness, there's a lot of downsides compared to the old Mac iMac I had. So I'm really looking forward to a Studio Display 2. But the rumors are all on and off, and what are we expecting? When are we expecting? It keeps changing all the time, and nobody really knows anything. But I'm hoping at least to get like an equivalent to the MacBook Pro's mini LED setup for that. And I'm not expecting OLED or anything for that.
Yeah, the other thing that I found interesting were Apple Vision Pro 2 rumors / sort of leak.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Supposed to be lighter, more expensive, and I believe I wasn't clear if this was an optional wired variant. Like, you just buy a wire, or would you have to buy a completely different version of the headset that supported wire? Like, I wasn't clear if like you buy, you know what I mean? But,
right, I hadn't heard that it was expected to get more expensive. That's
no, less.
That's
expensive.
tough. Less expensive. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Lighter, less expensive, and then a wired option for, ultra low latency plug into your Mac or whatever.
Right.
I just wasn't clear if like that. Oh, there's a wire port in all of them, and you buy the optional wire, or you literally buy a wired version separately. I'm not sure about that.
I mean, I definitely think it would be nice from like a traditional VR gaming experience perspective to have an option for wired input for a Mac or something. Because as far as I've understood it, the current experience of Vision Pro with a Mac setup is that it's fine. You do experience the latency a bit, and you do experience the foveated rendering problems where. Like it's cool technology, and it's definitely good that it's there, where it has higher resolution on the spots you're looking at and lower resolution everywhere else. But it does lower the resolution everywhere else enough that you notice, is what I've heard. I've not tried this at all myself because I don't have a Vision Pro, and I'm not getting one until they're a lot less expensive, not just a bit. But,
yeah, same.
But yeah, I think for something like rendering a full game on your Mac and streaming that over there or something, I don't think the wireless option is necessarily going to be the best for that sort of thing. So if that's a route that the Vision Pro is going to allow in the future, I do think a wired option would be good for it.
Yeah, seems like it. So I just thought that was a fun little tidbit to add in.
Definitely.
Quick aside, just in case someone didn't catch the Apple news, Apple, like most Apple products, are exempt from the tariff stuff as of like yesterday, I think.
I think the only exceptions I'm aware of are the audio equipment, so their headphones, right. AirPods and stuff, and HomePods are not exempt. So if you're buying those, they might get a lot more expensive. We'll see. But
sure, but the essential like computing devices are going to be exempt, so that's good news. Bit of a seesaw, but that's 2025, so I'm just rolling with it personally.
Yeah, definitely.
But things are looking good in general. As Nat talked about himself, I think it's still worth being optimistic about Mac gaming. It's true at the end of the day, like actual sales and retention is what's like important for the publishers, developers / publisher, whoever. Well, it doesn't matter, the publisher really. But still, there's more Macs out there than ever. There's more Mac games out there than ever. I think in general, gamers in general have grown across the world, not just Macs.
Definitely.
Especially like post-COVID or during COVID and post-COVID, I think a lot of that's just retained.
Definitely.
Gaming's just bigger in the culture, whether it's stuff like the Minecraft movie. It's just out there. It's just more and more out there, and that's just a good thing for the gamer nerds who want, better games, more accessibility of it culturally, socially, whatever. It's just it's been there for a while. It's not like this is something new, but I'm just commenting that it's still growing. It's not like we've peaked and it's like, it's all downhill from here. It's like, nope, it's still climbing. So I just found that interesting in a good way, and it's fun to see, even if, I don't engage with necessarily all of this, i.e. I'm not going to buy a Switch 2. I'm not going to buy a Steam Deck. I'm not going to run out and buy a 5090 Ti. I'm not going to go see the Minecraft movie because I don't really care. But it's like all of this is, in a sense, a broad part of the gaming ecosystem. It's just different sections of it. So I view it all as positive, whether
Definitely.
I engage with it all directly or not, or if I like it all directly or not. That doesn't matter. I'm just happy to see it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in some sense, I think that so you mentioned Switch 2 there, and it made me think. In some sense, I think that the more diversity there is in the gaming market as a whole, the better it is for all gaming sides, including the Mac. So, if all games were concentrated purely on Windows or purely on PlayStation or whatever, I think that there would be a higher likelihood of games being made more specifically to target that platform, where the more different targets there are, like the Switch, like the PlayStation, like the Xbox, Mac OS, etc., the more the portability aspect might be in focus. So I think I have some level of hope that the Switch 2 is also positive for Mac gaming, even though it doesn't directly influence the Mac in any way whatsoever.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure.
I'm also not that into handheld stuff, but we are probably going to get one for the house because the girlfriend is a Switch player primarily. So
Right. Yeah. You mentioned something, maybe the Switch 2 game prices were going up. Was that correct?
Yes, and it seems a bit variable so far. I can't remember the exact details anymore, but there was something about Donkey Kong and Mario Kart World, the new Mario Kart game, were, I forget, it was $70 and $80 respectively, or 80 and 90, but it was a big price hike where they're not making it consistent. So it's not just going to be all Switch games are 80 or 90 or whatever. But they did have a range of increased prices. I think it was the Super Mario Kart one that was 80 or 90, the higher price tier. But $90, I think, is actually what it was for the pricier one, which is quite a big step up.
That is pretty pricey. Yeah, I've heard general rumors, just to mention this, to follow up, that maybe Grand Theft Auto 6 would be priced at $90, $100, baseline. I mean, there's absolutely no official confirmation of that whatsoever. This is industry analyst speculation or whatever, rumor mongering. I find it hard to believe that they would go that high, but maybe they will, because they're Rockstar and everyone will buy their game in the millions no matter what. So I guess we'll see.
Maybe what Nintendo is doing is going to be a trial run for the industry as well, and they're going to show that, hey, we can get away with that.
Well, that is exactly what it is. If your brand or your game is good enough, even if the price is what we would deem outrageous, they'll do it anyway, because, yeah, if people will pay, then that, I thought it was crazy when games went to $60 as the standard. I was like, I've been paying $50 most of my life for anything brand new AAA, and $60, that's crazy. Now it's $70. $70 is pushing me a little. I'm like, man, I really gotta like the game to pay $70. But yeah, it's just, costs are up. It's, cost of living, cost of development, blah, blah, blah. I do think budgets, though, have ballooned excessively, which is part of the issue. See something this is an extreme example, but purportedly the failed Concord shooter costs $400 million. It's how? How do you even spend this much money on a video game? This is just insane.
I think this is a whole podcast episode in itself.
It is. I'm just trying to mention it quickly.
Yes, it is. But there's definitely a lot of sides to the story. On one hand, yes, inflation, cost of living, all of that stuff is going up, and it has. Inflation has been a thing forever, right? So
it has. Yeah.
Comparing $60 from 20 years ago to $60 today is, of course, also it has its flaws in making direct comparisons, right? But on the other hand, we've also seen an increase in microtransactions in AAA titles. On the PS2, that wasn't a thing at all. While the base game is $60, it's not exactly apples to apples comparing a $60 game today to a $60 game on the PS2. Because on the PS2, there was no expectation from the publisher that they could get more money out of that game later on.
Right. Yeah.
And then there is, as you say, the ballooning budget thing, where yes, part of that, makes sense, because if you make a bigger game, you might get more sales. So while you spend another million, you get another million units sold. So that's 60 million in revenue or whatever, right? But to some degree, I also think it gets ludicrous. Like if the budget is increased because we're going to record more voice lines, or we're gonna expand the scope beyond a certain point, does that make the game better and more worth buying, or are you just adding cost for no benefit? Is it for like 1% of players who are even going to see all of it, right?
Right.
Compared to the players who just complete the main story or whatever. So I, to some degree, you could argue that the game industry is inflicting that extra cost on itself for no proper benefit, but it's a whole discussion, right?
It is a whole discussion. I just would say, I personally, obviously, big ambitious games can be amazing and rewarding. See, Baldur's Gate 3, extremely ambitious, very big, right? But I do wish there would be a little more return to those smaller scope games. Maybe they only take you 10, 15 hours to play, heck, even 6, 8 hours to play. And it's just more of like a tightly scoped, crafted type of experience, usually something single player, maybe occasionally co-op. And they could come out more often. They wouldn't have to be so high budget, or they could still be solid. I don't have an example off the top of my head. I'm just thinking, because like those used to be my favorite kind of games. Not too crazy, more like AA maybe, but it's just the way it goes. There's still plenty of those games out there. They do release, not necessarily for the Mac, but certainly PC console. But I would like to see less like 5, 6 year, 8 year development cycles with hundreds of millions of budgets. Then the game comes out and you're like, oh, you can play this game for the rest of your life. It's like, well, I don't really want to,
Exactly.
I don't want to play your game forever. I want to play it.
I definitely agree. And also, as an adult with a regular, day-to-day life, you have your household chores, you have your work and all that, right? You want your time playing games, having your interest, your hobby, you want it to be meaningful in some sense, right? I'm not necessarily saying that, my game needs to provide the meaning of life or something, but I'm just saying that I don't want to feel like I'm doing chores or wasting time while I'm playing the game. I want to be engaged and entertained.
Yeah, in a substantial way. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Exactly that.
And going back to Assassin's Creed Shadows from early on in the episode, then so far in the game, it's felt focused, but I've already gotten to a point where the game keeps like throwing more information at me, like, and then you can also do this side activity, and you can do this side activity, and if you look over there, then there's like a bunch of loot you haven't picked up, and I'm like, right, but don't make this too big. Don't make it too big. Keep focus, guys. Keep focus. Because I do want to play Assassin's Creed Shadows. I'm having a great time with it, but I do fear that it could easily get into a situation where it is one of those games where they've aimed for a playtime of 100 hours, but it would be better if they aimed for 50.
30 to 50 is kind of my max these days, generally,
agreed.
For all the reasons you said. There's work, there's chores, there's relationships, there's house stuff, there's other hobbies. Have time, but I don't have the time I used to have, like when I was 20 or whatever the heck, when I was younger, basically, and I still was busy, but less busy, and I could just dump ungodly hours into a video game, and it was fine.
yeah, exactly.
But those people still exist, so of course they make games for them too. But
yeah, naturally.
Yeah, but we can wrap it up. I think today, some fun game discussion, tech discussion. But we could definitely spend a whole show talking about that kind of stuff. Hopefully we can have Nat on again, maybe for like episode 60, because I like even numbers.
That would be fun.
He didn't agree to that, by the way. I'm just saying he generally agreed to do another show, so we'll see when we can get him on again. Because that was super fun, and there's definitely more to talk about there.
Yeah, and for the future, I also have more exploits of the Mac Studio to talk about. Been pushing it through a variety of other things as well that could be interesting to talk about, and
in WWDC's coming up relatively soon. So yeah, we will have more, and hopefully we'll get like a surprise Cyberpunk release. Maybe they're waiting to show it off at WWDC though, or something.
Then it's definitely no longer early of the year. but yeah, at this point they might just go like, well, we've already delayed it a bit. Let's just.
That's what I mean. Like, why not just wait a little more for like a big splash?
Get some press there as well.
Yeah, they get more eyes on it and some fanfare, and that's just my assumption. I just thought of that. We'll see if that's true, or they just drop it in the middle of May or something. Who knows? Yeah. All right. Thanks for listening, everyone. Thanks for being here, Casper. Good talk, and we will catch you guys next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.